Hi everyone, I'm Dorian Wanzer, Grassroots Advocacy Manager for Outreach and Communications at the National Association of Community Health Centers.
Hey folks, I'm Oliver Spurgeon, NAC's Deputy Director of Federal Affairs.
Yesterday, the House of Representatives voted on the American Health Care Act and it passed, and we're sitting with Oliver because we want to find out what happened and what to expect. So Oliver, can you explain what happened yesterday?
That's a great question, Dorian. So as you guys know, over the past several months, the Federal Affairs team here at NAC has been tracking the Affordable Health Care Act. And this is House Republicans' effort to revamp and repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act that was passed in 2010.
And so, what's next, you would say? I mean, I assume it would be going to the Senate, but what can we expect? What's next?
Yeah, and that's a good question, Dorian. We've received lots of inquiries expressing the same thing. So the bill is actually moving to the Senate right now, and it's largely expected that senators will actually write their own version rather than taking up the House's bill of the American Health Care Act. The Senate has a broad coalition ranging from very conservative Republicans to very liberal Democrats, and so they'll have to get 51 votes through a process called reconciliation that we'll talk about a bit later.
What are the important issues in the Senate?
Good question, Dorian. So the biggest issue right now for Senate Republicans is something known as the Byrd Rule. And the Byrd Rule has to do with reconciliation. That's an internal congressional procedure that allows bills in the Senate to pass with a simple majority, just 51 votes as opposed to 60. But the biggest issue with the Byrd Rule is that legislation that's trying to be passed under reconciliation can't make substantial changes to policy or add to the deficit. And so there are some provisions in the House version of the Affordable Care Act that many observers here in Washington think will be birdable. That is, they will violate the Byrd Rule, add to the deficit, or make substantial policy.
Is there anything else we should be looking at?
Good question, Dorian. So another big issue for Senate Republicans is the Medicaid expansion. And so two senators come to mind, Senator Capito from West Virginia and Senator Portman from Ohio. Both senators represent large numbers of Medicaid expansion enrollees, and so they're deeply concerned about the impacts of the House bill that passed and what it would do to roll back the Medicaid expansion. They both publicly expressed concern about what would happen to individuals in their states and what would happen to the Medicaid rosters back home. And so that'll be one issue that Senate Republicans will have to deal with as they craft their bill.
So, what are some of the other issues other than Medicaid that we should be focused on?
Sure. So I think broadly Senate Republicans and Democrats, but largely Republicans, are concerned about the large-scale impacts of what the AHCA would do. So, as you know, the House bill passed before the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan entity that examines the impact of legislation. The House bill passed before the CBO could examine the impacts of the AHCA's changes. And so many Senate Republicans are worried about what that bill could do to their constituents, and so they're willing to wait until there's an actual impact analysis from the Congressional Budget Office. They want to know how many people may lose health insurance, what the impacts to Medicaid could be, and how much it may actually cost the deficit or add to the deficit.
I assume with that information it will affect how long it will take in the Senate for them to vote, correct?
That's very insightful, Dorian. So right now there's no timeline on when the bill will actually come to the Senate floor. A number of public pronouncements by senators across the board have said that they want to take their time and analyze this and make sure that they get the process right before coming to a vote. As we said previously, they do want to wait on the results of the Congressional Budget Office's examination of the House version of the AHCA to make sure that there aren't going to be any large-scale ramifications or problems with their constituents back home.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Oliver, for answering some of our questions, and we'll be following up with you, and you guys will get more videos as we get more information. So thanks.
Thanks.